If anyone thought Marnie Cohen didn't exist anymore, you're wrong. She's here and she's fun.
Corner he goes. It bounces in the vicinity of Carey. Magnificent! And that is really the goal.
I think we're going.
Okay, I guess we can start it there. Well, not quite the reveal for this episode I was hoping for, Marnie. We've wheeled you out of cryogenic freezing and you've come back. We've defrosted you and you're back.
I'm back.
On further north after a big, big holiday.
I know. It wasn't really much of a holiday. I didn't go anywhere. I've just been recovering. It was obviously a really, really big season, followed by a very, very big...
Well, you said you wanted the season to start straight away after it finished.
I still do.
Okay.
But then with no football on, well, no men's football on anyway, I have dabbled a little bit in the women's, but I've just really taken some time out and I feel like I'm back better than ever now.
Wow.
So, hi, everyone. It's so nice to be here. Thanks for having me back.
New and improved Marnie for off-season.
Yeah, sure.
Exciting.
Let's go with that. I didn't think there was anything wrong with me at this, before the off-season. But
oh, really? Interesting. Anyway, I'm joking. I'm joking.
Whoa.
We can talk about that after. We're back. We're here. We're sitting in the room and we're talking about North Melbourne. Now, this is good times, Marnie. We're about to go to the AFLW as well, which is
can't
very
wait.
exciting. We're
So
recording
excited.
on Sunday morning. But basically, we're going to chat about the trade period and a bit of media criticism, people's opinions, and then we're going to answer some fan questions.
There's nothing like some North Melbourne media criticism. Some things don't change in the off-season and that's one of them.
No, I honestly feel like we could have gone out and got Charlie Curnow and maybe taken Wiedering off them too, and they probably would have given us a B- for our trade window if that's what happens.
Don't tempt me with a good time.
Wow, I shouldn't have used Carlton. Anyway, let's get straight into it then. So, let's go through individual players. I love what we did, and I got to talk about that a little bit.
Yes.
Do you want to just actually say how you felt after the trade period, and then we'll go into individual players? Because people know how I feel, but we haven't heard from you heaps yet.
Yeah, I was happy overall, and I think it's hard not to be. And I've spoken about this a few times now, but we identified what we needed and where the gaps were on our list on and off the field, and then we identified players that we thought were reasonable targets to bring through the door that would fill those needs, and then we went out and got them. So I think it was a solid trade period. It would have been nice to have a couple of surprises in there, but that is an increasingly difficult thing to do when you're North Melbourne playing good footy, let alone when you've been on the bottom of the ladder for quite some time.
Well, I was going to say, a North Melbourne surprise isn't really a surprise I want, Marnie.
No,
because I feel like most North Melbourne
bad.
surprises haven't been fantastic in the last half a decade. So
fair call.
No surprises
fair call
is probably good.
So we did what we said we were going to do, and I don't think you can be unhappy with that.
No, I agree. I think it's good. And we sort of talked about this through the season a little bit. It's good that it feels like the club is representing what the fans feel a little bit. I know that's not always the way to go if you're working behind the scenes. Like, don't listen to fans because what do we really know at the end of the day? But, the fans know where there's big holes, key forward, small forward, bully of a midfielder, all that sort of stuff, bit of composure of halfback. And we've gone out and we've seeming to fill a few of these gaps that we had in the team, because there's no doubting how talented we are over the park, but we filled so many little holes, and I feel like we don't really have many gaps anymore. We just need to improve or maybe upgrade those positions. Let's go through the individual players.
Let's go.
Pick one to start.
I'm going to pick my favourite, and I think it is the controversial take that this is my favourite player that we've brought through the door.
Please say Jack Darling.
I'm going to say Jack Darling.
Awesome.
I think his acquisition is so underrated.
I agree.
I was watching Brady's rap on Wednesday night once the trade period ended, and the things that he highlighted that Jack Darling will bring to our side are things that we so desperately are missing. Did you know that Jack Darling was West Coast's #1 pressure forward in their side over the year? And for a team that struggles to retain the ball inside 50, we've struggled to get repeat entries. Having another player like that, Paul Curtis had a really, really good defensive element to his game this year, but he can't do it alone. He also is the guy that needs to kick goals. So for Darling to come in and to add that extra element of defensiveness, Toby Pink was sort of also used as a negating forward in the later half of the year, and I think I do think that there is a place for that role. And while I love Toby Pink, I think Jack Darling is an upgrade on that, despite his age. He's, close to 300 games. He's won a premiership. He's an AA player, and we've
Toby
spoken
Pink
about
could end
all
his career with 500 goals, though.
You never know.
You never know.
You never know. Stranger things have happened. So I really like that. And then the obvious second foil to Larkey will take a bit of pressure off Larkey. Will probably take a lot of pressure off Cam Zerha as well. I think
allows him to play his more natural role.
I think so. Well, I think at times Zerha has been forced to kind of play taller than he is or than he should have to. And I just think for an overall structure, Jack Darling is a really underrated acquisition for us.
Yeah, we gave up pick 67 in the end, I'm pretty sure.
So it's a free hit.
So it's basically a free hit. It's very rare that the draft kind of goes that deep, especially after father-sons and all that sort of stuff. I mean, look, it can do sometimes. I mean, obviously we've got Larkey at 73 and all that sort of stuff.
Sherry as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, we basically just lost Larkey and Jerry type player then. Is that what we're saying? Jeez, that's going to anger the fans. Anyway, it's a low draft pick. I don't think it matters too much. And I've been a big advocate of basically everything outside of first round picks I think should be up for trade. And we'll obviously get to that when we talk about Caleb Daniel as well. But no, I absolutely love it. Now, not giving up much. People are screaming for leadership. That's a tick. Premiership player, 300 games, 500 goals. And has been a staple of that forward line for the Eagles for such a long time and through very successful times. I've heard people sort of saying, he hasn't been part of a good culture for a few years, but what about all the years before that?
Yeah.
And success and all that sort of stuff. And it doesn't mean the Eagles' culture was bad. I guess it was just a transition period.
100%. And also it's easy to forget, but it's so rare for players to reach 250, 300 games in this day and age. So he's clearly doing something right in his preparation year on year to still be able to add something to the side, regardless of where West Coast has been. So while his body might have slowed down a little bit, the mind doesn't slow down, and the standards that he can drive will remain the same.
His game relies on strength and, like you said, IQ. As well. He's never been the guy who's going to jump on someone's head. He's never been the guy who's going to sprint down the wing or anything like that.
Yeah.
And yes, age catches up with you, but you've got old man strength basically the rest of your life. You know what I mean? And I don't think the way people are talking about it is like he's 36 years old. No. And I don't understand and I know these guys were like top level players, but you've got Gunstons and Bruce and Dangerfield and Tex Walker and Pendlebury and Boak and all these guys going around at mid-30s, if 36, nearly 37, some of them. And that seems to be okay.
Well, you have to look in our own backyard. I mean, Boomer Harvey was a perfect example. Yeah. He arguably could have played on for another 2, 3, 4 seasons.
Jared Waite is another one to throw in there and be like, look, it's not a bad thing. And not every recruit has to be who's going to be in our premiership side. That's a bit of an idiotic way to think at this point, I really believe. I think we need to get players to elevate us. And I think Jack Darling comes in and his job is to come in and the next couple of years get us out of that bottom 4 and get us pushing up the ladder.
Yeah, and you only have to look at the likes of Oscar Allen or Jake Waterman at West Coast and the way both of them have been able to flourish. Waterman in particular over the last 12 months.
Came from nowhere, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not so much, we haven't brought most of these players in to do what they were doing in their prime.
Yeah.
They've clearly got a role cut out for them, and it looks a little bit different to what they would have done 5, 6, 7 years ago. And you only have to look at West Coast forward line in the way those two have performed. And Darling's physicality, he still demands attention just given his presence alone.
I think the thing with Darling as well is if Darling was washed, as some people have said, which is completely false, if he was really that bad and not playing well, he would not have retained his spot when Allen and Waterman were both in that side. You've got 2 really good key position players there, and he maintained his spot the entire season. And that's because of his pressure. That's because of his threat. Like you said, he demands someone to go to him. And it's going to help Larkey out so much. And that's, once again, a positional need where we really need to fill. So I'm really, really happy with it. I guess we'll just talk about a little bit of criticism, which we've already sort of talked about a little bit, but are you concerned about the age at all? Because personally for me, giving up 67 for someone for a couple of years from what he brings, not at all for me. Now, is there a chance he could fall off a cliff? Potentially.
Yeah, of course. You run that risk with any player.
32 years old in 2024 is kind of like 28, 27 years old in like 2000. So I don't think 30 is when you really start to hit a wall. I think you can decline a little bit, but it's still an upgrade on what we've got. But how do you feel about maybe some of the criticism that has been thrown Jack Darling's way?
Oh, look, it's unsurprising. I mean, he is reaching the later part of his career. You can't shy away from that. But if he negatively contributes to our performance on field, you just don't play him. Like,
Yeah.
it's really not that deep.
Yeah, and because, you know, people also talk about the money, and he's getting a lot of money this season, and I think we'll knock that back a lot the season after, but we have to spend 90% of our salary cap, so who cares? It just doesn't matter. Like, we're not bringing in, as long as we got money for LDU, who cares?
Yeah.
It's just not a problem. So money and what people get paid isn't the fans' concern, and also with having to pay 90% of that salary cap, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing.
I'm not really worried about him possibly falling off a cliff. Like I said, he falls off a cliff, you just don't play him. Like, it's not a big deal.
And then Bryn Teakle kicks 50 goals for the year. He's got dad energy as well, Jack Darling, and it's because he doesn't shave his neck on his beard.
I think he's
He's
so
got a bit of
rogue.
rough and tumble
I'm such
around
a
him.
fan.
Yeah.
I'm such a fan.
I'm already calling this as Marnie's favourite player now. Like, we actually have questions about this later. But Jack Darling just feels like in the Marnie mould.
It kind of feels right,
Well,
hey?
Hugh Greenwood was such a nice boy, you know, a family man, you know, just a little bit of rugged rough and tumble about him as well. And
Yeah.
Jack Darling just sort of fits that mould. So Marnie's got a type, and I think Jack Darling really suits that. But hey,
Watch his face.
we
guys.
don't need Marnie to tell us if that's right or wrong, because you can tell by the smile on her face. Okay, Luke Parker, the other dad of the group.
Yeah, I think this was definitely the
big
biggest
one.
coup for North. It's so interesting. Brady Rawlings was talking about deadline day and was saying that he was on the phone to Luke Parker earlier in that day, and apparently Parker was desperate, and he used that word, like desperate, to come across the North. I mean,
North.
I don't remember the last time anyone was desperate to come near Arden Street,
Yes.
let alone someone of his caliber. So look, obviously the big draw card for us, he was great in the grand final. He was easily one of Sydney's best in that second half, and I mean, the game was kind of over by the time he stood up, so I don't know how much you can really want to take that into account, but leadership through and through, you know, he's one of the last members of the 2012 Swans premiership side that's still in the system, if not the last, maybe.
I think he's the last, yeah.
Yeah, so that's quite an asset. And for me, if he's so desperate to come to North, it kind of validates the potential that the list has. And it really feels like he's ready for a new challenge. Forget the fact that he played in that 2012 premiership side. The Swans have barely missed finals in the time that Parks has been at Sydney.
He's been like at the core of that.
Exactly. So it's bringing over that successful culture, that Bloods culture that's so famous that, you know, is envied by most of the competition.
Yeah, it's nice to have players who obviously want to come as well, which is great. And I think he really does. I think this is the start of us seeing the first bits of like the Clarkson effect as well, because, you know, if our recruiting team and everything's contacting him, I think he said in an interview, he talked to Clarkson as well. These are players that are going to elevate us and move us up the ladder a little bit, and then next year we'll get bigger players and hopefully bigger and bigger, and then all of a sudden we've won 3 premierships. So everything will be great.
We're massive, guys. Look out. The other thing I love about Luke Parker is he does have the ability to kick goals, and it's becoming more and more important for midfielders to be able to add that string to their game. We saw LDU break open a few games by kicking 2-3 goals. Harry Sheasel's the same. Yeah. Wardlaw's not there yet, but he will get there.
Wait till McKercher pushes up the ground too. He'll be pinging them from outside 50 for fun.
I'm so excited for that. So yeah, I think this was the obvious one. I wasn't worried about this not happening. I have to be honest. I know there was a lot of people. I
wasn't until like the last till 7:20.
I know, and it's so interesting because apparently the trade wasn't finalized until the last like 10 minutes or whatever, and I was really surprised by that. This wasn't a surprise trade. He came out before the trade period even started and said, "I want to go." Yeah. So it's really. That surprised me. I thought that was a bit strange.
Well, look, we'll talk about Brady Rawlings in a second, and we can sort of go around maybe that with him and his performance, because I think that ties into that.
Anyway, we got it done. That's all. That's the bottom line. That's
Pick
all that matters. Yeah, that's about right.
Fair.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think, and I've been big on this in our trade period here, and even before, and it goes along with what I said about like maybe everything but first round picks is on the table.
Yeah.
Where pick 44 to us for Luke Parker is great value, but maybe pick 44 for a better side isn't as good value. And the value of a player isn't just how they are seen on the market, it's to the individual club as well. And I think, and this will come around with Caleb Daniel as well, is we pay a little bit of I guess people would say overs, but to our club, it's not overs because we need those players more than we'd need another 18-year-old who we don't know what they're going to be.
I just think our willingness to trade picks in this draft, which is quite a deep draft, it's one of the deepest we've seen for quite a while, kind of says to me that the club really backs where the list is currently sitting, and maybe we're not too far away from being able to genuinely push, you know, towards the top half of the bottom 8 and then, you know, push again towards finals. So that fills me with a lot of confidence about where internally we sit and where we rate our list. And so, you know, kudos to them if, you know, 44 for Parker does seem fair.
Yeah. How do you feel about Parker fitting in the team? Like, I feel he'll predominantly play forward. Personally.
I agree.
You agree?
Yeah.
Because I think she's a Wardlaw, LDU is our midfield.
Agree.
And I feel like he's going to be deployed. I've used this example before, like the Collingwood game, where if we've dominated and we're humming, he doesn't need to go in there and hurt his body, and we can get an extra miles out of him. But if we need someone to go and step up and do something big and get us a clearance, he's the first guy that goes in.
I could definitely see him rotating with Shees through the middle. Not heaps. Like, I'd go maybe like a, you know, 70-30 split or something like that. I think there's still value in having experience in and around the ball, especially in those crucial moments like that Collingwood game or like the Melbourne game the week later. So I do agree with you, though. I think he, you know, floating closer to goal. He kicked 3 goals in the grand final.
Yeah,
so
he's dangerous.
He's capable of it.
Yeah, no, 100%. It'd be interesting, like, you got Simpkins sort of half forward. Is he a permanent midfielder now, or he sort of floated off half forward and came in
Harry
and
Sheasel does what Harry Sheasel wants to do.
Harry Sheasel goes,
literally,
this is where I'm playing this
He can
week.
actually do anything. Like,
Jerry,
he could
get out of the ruck.
No,
Give me
literally.
the helmet. I'm going in the ruck,
He
mate.
could. Seriously, the kid just does whatever he wants. So, and that's an incredible asset to have. We can throw him sort of wherever we need him to go, and he can adapt so well. So, yeah, I think Park's forward, but potentially rotating with Shees on the odd occasion through the midfield.
There has been some criticism about his age as well, which once again I think is a bit ridiculous. 31 is not past it at all. I mean, arguably that's the end of your prime, I would say. So it's really interesting to see people's thoughts on this one. I don't know with Parker, like he's that Luke Hodge, that Jordan Lewis type that has gone to a club to help them when they're at the bottom of the ladder.
Yeah.
But then as far as I remember, those two players were in their mid-30s when they went, and Parker's in his early 30s, and he's coming to us now. He's still going to have really, really good years. And I know people look back on Brisbane and Melbourne and say, look at what those players did for those clubs. They've both won premierships since they went there. So how come that can't be looked at like that? How come do you think that people look at this and go, well, Luke Parker's not in his best anymore. He's in his 30s. He's old. How come people aren't going, this is the Hodge, the Lewis of North Melbourne?
It's the play the kids narrative, I think, is one thing.
You can't just play all the kids. I don't know, this isn't what your opinion is, but I've heard online opinion of play all the kids. It's not linear. They're not all just going to become good without proper leadership.
But
and that's
also,
where I think Richmond are going to fall down a lot. So,
well, it's all well and good to just play the kids, but these kids are kids that have won 3 games a year for the last 2 or 3 seasons. If we had been in a position like where Richmond were, 4 or 5 years ago, they've come off the back of winning 3 flags in 4 years. Sure, if that's where the club was at, maybe it would be different. But we don't know what it's like to have a winning, thriving culture. And that is, in my mind, why it's so important for us to bring in, and I'm not talking about someone who's played in 1 grand final or, has made the finals a few times. Like, these are, Luke Parker is the example. He's been surrounded by a winning culture for most of the time that he's been in the system. Jack Darling has too. I mean,
Absolutely.
West Coast have only really been poor for the last 2 or 3 seasons, maybe.
Yeah. And you can say the same for the Bulldogs with Daniel, which we'll get to, but, he's won a premiership and the Bulldogs have been very, very solid and successful. Like, is success winning a grand final and everything else under it is not? I don't believe so. So he's been part of good sides. So all these guys have won premierships.
You also only have to look at Liam Shields and what he was able to do for us over the past couple of seasons.
That's why we've kept him around.
Well, I don't think any of us would have expected him to be a lock in our best 23 for majority of the time when he was at North. I really enjoyed what Shields brought to the side on field. He's never been that forceful leader, which is not a knock on him, but maybe that's where we needed to go out and actually bring in, all 3 of these guys have had leadership roles in the past at their previous clubs. So that's where the difference maybe lies. So I just, it's very rare that you're going to be able to pluck a captain out of nowhere and, lure them over. It doesn't work that way.
No. We got Jacob Konstanty thrown in to the deal as well.
The steak knives.
But apparently a player that we've had our eyes on for a long time. Rawlings did say that we were looking to draft him a few years ago. But I think we took Braden George instead when he fell to that sort of pick. Obviously, Braden unfortunately hasn't worked out with his knees so far. But I love that this got thrown in and we didn't have to give up anything else other than pick 44 for it as well.
It says to me that he was probably going to be delisted if he didn't come over to North.
That was the case.
Again, it's sort of a low risk. I'm not as bullish on him as a lot of other people are, just given that I understand trying to break it into Sydney's side is a lot more difficult than it is to, break it into North side. I'm happy to give him a go, and the opportunity is there for the taking. We haven't been able to lock in a small forward, a genuinely good small forward for a very, very long time. What I liked about Konstanty, what I do like about him is he also is a very good pressure forward.
That's his game.
Which is something that we really, really need. I was really hoping that we'd chase after Matt Owies a little bit more from Carlton. He's 27 years of age. He's kicked 30-odd goals over the last season. I think that's something that would have been perfect for us. However, Matt Owies doesn't really have any defensive element to his game.
No, that's what I was going to say. Like, Owies is a good goal scorer, but I think he sort of fits that Paul Curtis role more than maybe a small forward. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't see the Carlton fans I've talked to have described Owies as more of a lead-up, medium-sized forward, and
I'd put him in the small forward category.
But still, small or medium, still more of a lead-up forward than a he's
a
around
target.
the packs and
He's
that
a
sort of
target.
stuff.
He does have a good goal sense, maybe not in the same way that the other Carlton small forwards or a traditional small forward, like that crumbing, sort of opportunistic forward. But that's fine. I think his game style, while we do need goal scorers, his game style probably doesn't suit us the same way and probably doesn't fulfill the need the same way Konstanty does.
Yeah, on paper, I'd probably rather Konstanty's game. Obviously, Owies is a much better player.
Well, Konstanty hasn't debuted yet. So I think it's a low risk, high reward situation because he kind of was thrown in for nothing. Yeah. It's just a list spot. So I'm happy just to give him a go, but I would play him like from day one.
Yeah, I would too. I would give him the shot. I'd say him and Geordie Payne are probably the two that hopefully, and Robert Hansen Jr., I guess he earned his spot at the end of the year. So they're the three that can fight it out for that one small forward role. You've got Drury's and you've got Cooper Harveys and stuff. Personally, just don't think they're at it. Especially Drury, I just don't see a way he sticks around.
We don't know where they're going to sit yet. They're both still out of contract, so we'll have to wait and see on that.
Yeah, I just like the idea of getting once again. I know he hasn't debuted, and he might turn out to be nothing, but it's still a player archetype and someone that we did have eyes on in previous drafts that we've been able to get. So it's good because we didn't have to give up anything else.
Yeah, 100%. It's a free hit, so you just sort of take it and see what he can do.
It's double helmet time, Marnie, because we've got two helmets on the same team. And if this isn't the best thing about the AFL, I don't know what is.
Do you know what's so funny as well? You know, Caleb Daniel's like my height.
Yeah. Yeah. But he can kick straight, and that's all that I care about.
Great. That's exactly what we need.
Now, if North Melbourne doesn't market the double helmet thing, you're missing a trick.
They'll have to.
Guys, all right?
They know.
And I can post this up. I was going to Photoshop it myself. There's a Spud Webb and Manute Bol photo in the the NBA, where Manute Bol was like 7'8" and Spud Webb was like 5'4" or something like that. And they stood next to each other.
Incredible.
And I think we need to recreate that, but with the helmets.
All right.
That'd be fantastic. Let's talk about the deal, though.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Caleb Daniel?
It is overs. It is.
Interesting.
On the grand scheme of things and looking at North's overall trade period, I think it's fine. It all kind of evens out. He wasn't a best 22 player by the end of the season.
Was that? I doubt that was because of his own form, and I feel like, from what Dogs fans have told me, he was getting thrown around all over the place by Bevo and never got to nail down anything.
Yeah, well, that's frustrating. And again, you don't know how much of it was Bevo and how much of it was his form.
Yeah.
But again, pick 25 for someone who wasn't in the best 22 consistently throughout the season. It's probably a bit high, but it's fine. Again, it's not just what he can do, it's how he's going to benefit those around him. I mean, Colby McKirch is the biggest beneficiary on the back of this, I would think.
And that's the stuff that I look at and I go, to me, 25 for North Melbourne, I think 25 is fine because It's probably going to drop to 30 odd, maybe after with all the father, sons and academies. At pick 30, are you guaranteed a player as good as Caleb Daniel? Absolutely not. So for North Melbourne's position with guys like Goda and Bergman and Hardiman and stuff, we've already got guys who are higher picks than 25 that play positions that Daniel does, but he comes in and makes a sure thing that we've got composure, we've got ball use, and we've got a guy who can lead in that back line as well. So look, when I package up the whole thing, I think 25 is fine, but I do understand what you're saying where 25 to a lot of other clubs is overs. But I think to us, especially pushing McKercher up to the wing, I don't know, 25, take it and go.
Okay, here's a question for you because this is my only concern and it's actually got nothing to do with Caleb Daniel. Where do you think this leaves Zach Fisher now?
I still think Zach Fisher plays off halfback. I think, and I know Goda had a great preseason, but an Achilles injury is a massive injury. And long term, do I see Goda in there somewhere? Yeah, I do. I think Goda looked really, really good preseason and we only got to see him one game, but we know his potential. I still think Fisher is the scapegoat like McDonald is a scapegoat, I think. Is Fisher perfect? Absolutely not. But Daniel gives you composure, and I think Fisher can be maybe that offensive threat off the back line, almost like McKercher played. But then you've got Daniel there he's not going to be a threat pushing you forward, but he's going to make that switch that opens the ground up and maybe Fisher can run on or something like that. So Fisher's a good player. Fisher isn't a VFL quality player. He's an AFL standard player. Did he turn the ball over a lot? Yes. Who's he kicking to? Jaden Stevenson 1-on-1 on half forward with some bloke? Like, come on. We need to be a little bit smarter than that, I think. He's in his mid-20s. Fisher's going into his prime. He can be better. You know, another preseason. I still see him as a best 22 player personally. That being said, Goda, Hardiman, Bergman, Darcy Tucker is the other one as well. There's a lot of spots around that half back line. You can throw McDonald in there as well. There's a lot of spots on that half back line that players can play in, and you know, I don't know who the best are, but personally for me, give me Daniel and Fisher to start because I would rather experience and players that we have, like Stevens and Fisher, need to be given more chance. You can't look at them after 1 year and go, rubbish, done. How many players have we seen have a bad first year and then get into the system and come on? I'm not saying Stevens makes it. I know I'm a fan, but I maybe wouldn't have him in the 22 at the moment, or maybe in the 22, but maybe not in the starting 18 because McKercher goes to that wing. But I don't know. I think sometimes we're a little bit too much like, oh my God, Goda was really good for one game last year in the preseason, so he's just going to come back in and be that. And his Achilles is in half. So
yeah, it's potential versus reality.
Tucker gives you a 6, 7 out of 10 every game. I think Daniel gives you a 7, 8 out of 10 minimum every game. But I think I'd like Daniel on the right side and Fisher on the left, you know, sort of off that half back line for me personally. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think it puts Fisher under a lot of pressure, to be honest. I don't know if...
Who plays over Fisher though? Would you play one of the young guys or
Well, you've
Tucker?
got Archer.
Yeah, we're talking
Obviously,
half-back
they're different
half-back.
though. McDonald probably, to be honest.
I'd still say there's a spot for Fisher and McDonald in the team.
Maybe. I just think it puts a lot of pressure on him. I see them as playing quite a similar role. And I think Daniel just and I really like Zach Fisher as well. I think his intent is great and I think his hunger and his sort of his ball sense and his football sense is good, but the skills don't align. In the way that I probably would have hoped. He was quite costly, quite a few games. I think he came in on such a high expectation and he underwhelmed me. And we spoke about this at the end of the year when we did our review of the season. I don't think it spells the end for Fisher, but it kind of...
He's got 4 years left on a deal,
No, he's got 3 years left. Yes, but I think it puts him under pressure. I think he is one of the players, and I know it's crazy because he's only been at North for a season, but I think this puts him under a lot of pressure. I
think that's good for him though.
100%, it's great. I also think that I'm really bullish on Hardiman, and I think he showed a lot in the few games that he did play.
Ooh, big call.
I don't know. Goda's really hard. I mean, his body hasn't been able to hold up, and I think Hardiman showed a lot of promise. And I'm just contradicting myself now, but he showed a lot of promise when he did play last season. So I think it's going to be it's good. It's good. I feel like we've actually got proper depth.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of names we can throw around, but if I'm looking at my best 23. it's between Fisher and Hardiman for that second spot, and I don't know who I go for.
That will be an exciting episode.
Watch this
whenever
space.
that comes up.
Watch this space.
Let's talk about Brady Rawlings really quickly, just before we take a break. How do you feel like Brady did? This man is he's under McDonald and Fisher scrutiny every single week. You know what I mean? He's under that sort of heater all the time. Is it time to start giving this guy a bit more respect and stop doubting him as much? Because I still think people are anti-Rawlings from the Will Phillips draft. And after that, we've kind of nailed most drafts. I know the Horn Francis thing and all that sort of stuff, but that's more on him as an individual and his lack of integrity than it is on Brady Rawlings.
Yeah.
You know, even since Clarkson's come in, it's really tough position for Rawlings to be in, because if he makes a pick and it doesn't work out, you go, that's Rawlings' fault. But if he picks Wardlaw and Sheasel, you go, well, they were layups, so it doesn't matter. So anyone could have picked them. And that's that. You can't, you've got to judge things the same way. So I think Rawlings has been great since Clarkson's come in, even though I was ready to punch a wall at 7:20 when he hadn't done anything. How do you feel about Brady Rawlings, and does he deserve what he cops?
No, I think he did a really good job in this trade period. I don't think he's finished yet. I do expect some picks to be swapped around and thrown around, and he did allude to that in his chat that he had in his debrief after the trade period ended. I do think he did a good job. I think, like I said, and we've said it so many times before, he knew what we needed to do. He knew who we needed to fill those positions, and he went out and got it done. I also, and I know this is a really weird take, but I loved that he remained in the conversation for Houston right until that deal was done with Collingwood, because on the 1% chance that North did come out as the front runner and were able to secure Houston, we weren't going to sell the farm for him. We stayed in the conversation, and it's resilience, and it takes a lot to actually stand there knowing that most of the AFL world's probably laughing at you, but to remain in the frame. And he fronted up whenever he was asked the questions about Houston. He fronted up. He was really, really bold in coming out and saying, no, we're in Victoria and he wants to come to Victoria, so why not
Last
us?
time I checked, we're in Victoria. I love that.
I love that.
So
I think
good.
it's great. So kudos to him. I think he did a really good job. I expect that he's not done yet, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do with the picks and then in the draft as well.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I love that we stuck around with the Houston deal and just made it tough for Collingwood and Carlton. I mean, I don't want to get into other teams' trade periods, but I think Carlton missing out on Houston is a big thing for next season, and their prospects of premiership, I guess, is what they'd be thinking. Collingwood is an interesting one to end up getting it done. I mean, it sucks that it always has to be one of those big clubs, but the fact that we stuck around and made it harder for those clubs and make them pay more, it's almost like driving up bids in an auction, right? So I think it's great. And the worst case scenario is, we don't get Houston and we get Daniel instead. But the best case is we walk out with Houston. So it was really a throw at the stumps, and there was nothing really negative for us to
lose
be
in that situation.
No, I agree. So I understand that why Rawlings' job brings pressure, and he would know that more than anybody. But I do really feel like he gets a lot of heat from drafts, maybe pre-Sheasel days. Yep. And I think we need to maybe let that go a little bit. That being said, at 7:20, when nothing had happened, I was fuming. And not that I didn't think anything would happen, but I guess I was so desperate to get these players so we can go into next season excited and expecting better and hopefully getting better.
Yeah.
But I was saying, Brady Rawlings, if you don't get this done, mate, I'm coming down to Arden Street and I'll sign the resignation paperwork for you for sure. But that was more of just an emotional fan overreaction by me. I'm part of the problem, and I will always admit that I put pressure on Rawlings as well. But I think
it's good to be passionate because we care and we want the club to succeed.
We should demand as fans better.
100%.
Right? But then looking back in hindsight at everything, I think he's done very, very well in the last 3 years, and he's a big part to play alongside Clarkson and everybody of why we're hopefully moving up the ladder, or at least getting 3 premiership players into the club.
100%. I think he did a great job. I also have this theory that half of the trades are done before the 2 p.m. window opens on deadline day, and that it's just for the theatrics of it all.
You got to televise
they let it
it.
unplay, in the last half an hour. So I wasn't. It's not like any of these deals were like 11th hour bids. I mean, and I'll just use this as an example. Brody Kemp, St Kilda came forward like with a day and a half to go and said, oh, we want Brody Kemp. Brody Kemp was contracted. He's a required player at Carlton. In what world is that going to happen? I have no idea. But Darling, Parker and Caleb Daniel, even to some extent, even though he probably tried to hide it, all of these trades were floated way before the trade period even opened and, you know, way before deadline day. So I didn't really have any worry that it wasn't going to get done.
It's probably just clubs holding out to see if anything better comes along and just getting it done at the last minute, because the amount of trades that go through at that time. I mean, Bailey Smith has been, you know, said to be going to the Geelong for about a year.
Yeah.
You know, and that was like the last deal in the trade
because that was
deadline.
none of these trades were complex either. They were all very, very straightforward. Whereas the Bailey Scott, wow, the Bailey Smith to Geelong deal, that was, you know, a little bit more complicated and there was 4 clubs involved. So all very straightforward. We knew what we needed to do. We got it done and it's made me very, very, very excited for next season.
Thank you, Brady, for what you've delivered. You've dished us up a delicious 3-course meal and hopefully a little palate cleanser on the side in Konstanty.
Yeah. The dessert.
The
sweetener.
Oh, watch out. Oh, God. Anyway, before it gets too hot and heavy in here, I'm going to pause the video and we're going to come back in a second after grabbing a drink. I need a drink after that, mate. It's getting
down.
steamy. Yeah. Okay, we're back. One more question before fan questions because they are about to start. Media criticism of North Melbourne's trade window as a whole. Now, this has been something that I've been ranting a lot about at the barbershop because I can't really get my head around why it's ranked so lowly or no one's really rating it. And I know not to take Fox Footy and Footy on Nine's grades too seriously, but I do want to talk about them a little bit. We were given a C grade by a lot of the media for our trade window when teams like Richmond were given, I think, an A-.
Yeah.
The other things like our individual trades, obviously Darling and Parker, even though the media were crying out for us to get leadership, they're now too old though, which doesn't make sense. But then David King also said the Jake Stringer deal makes them, it is a great asset and this is one of his favourite deals. And Gary Lyons said it makes them flag favourites, which is very confusing to me. Why do you think North were given a C by the media compared to some other teams which I would say had lesser windows? Because I don't like what Richmond are doing. I know everyone thinks that they're just going to draft 10 Harley Reeds, but that's not how the draft works.
Yeah.
They didn't get any new players in. They only got draft picks and they're graded so highly. Personally, that's just because they're Richmond and we're North and we're a little bit smaller, so they're not going to get... Giving us an A doesn't look good. Why do you think that is the case?
Because what we brought in wasn't... And this is, we never were going to bring in players that were going to be a make or break, if that makes sense. We've already got those players. We've got LDU, we've got Sheasel, we've got Wardlaw, we've got Charlie Comben down back, Griffin Logue, and then, you know, we've got Tristan Cherry in the ruck and Nick Larkey. And we've kind of pulled together the bones already. This draft period maybe has looked like it's been an average draft period because our needs are different. You know, Richmond are, you know, maybe 2 or 3 seasons behind us. Now they're going for the full rebuild and they lost quite a few players, key players in the trade period. So they needed to bring in as many high draft picks as they possibly could because now they've got to sort of go through this rebuild. Whereas with North, we've done that already. So I can understand why they would give us that grading. I mean, when you look at it, someone like Parker and someone like, you know, Daniel or someone like Darling, none of these guys maybe are going to have a massive impact on the side in terms of themselves, but that was never the point of them coming to the club. Of course, they're all going to add something, but a lot of what they do complements the players that already exist within our list. And so that's kind of why I can understand. Also, just going on David King's comment about Jake Stringer and how, you know, now the Giants, I mean, look where the Giants list is. I mean,
absolutely.
They should be in the discussion for premiership contention because that's where they are as a whole and they only have 1 or 2 missing pieces to be able to throw themselves back at winning that first flag. Whereas for us, we've already got a lot of these things that Richmond will be looking to acquire in the draft. Or, you know, whoever else would be looking, you know, maybe Fremantle or something would be looking to acquire in the draft. Our need was different. And that's maybe why I think the media perceives it as an average trade period. Like I said at the top of the show, it would be nice to have a little surprise in there. Or imagine if we were able to pull off the Houston trade. I mean, that just would have been that would have blown everyone out of
Did
the
we
water.
set the expectation too high then?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. But
I don't think so.
Do you think that's why they're grading us like this? Then?
Probably.
Yeah, because
Probably, 'cause we were in
Houston
the-
was talked about for so long, and then we didn't get that over the line. So do you think they go, well, they didn't get the Houston thing done?
Well, apparently we were never actually genuinely
Yeah,
in the
I agree.
contention for Houston. So then that kind of makes that argument obsolete.
I agree. It's just interesting to me how we're perceived, and I know we're a small club, and I know we've been really bad, and we deserve criticism, but I don't see how anything we did is negative. But C is below average. So it's like, why is this our grade? I'd love to talk to someone who graded it or has that opinion and understand why. The only reason I could think why is they think Parker and Darling are too old, which I think is stupid because then once again we look at Hodge and Lewis and that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
and that's a great pickup. And
Yeah.
they, and hindsight is they won premierships years after those guys had been at the club and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I just don't understand it. I think it's really disrespectful to what North Melbourne is trying to do. And I just think we're an easy target, and I think they don't like us very much. And every fan thinks their club is hated by the media, which is not true at all. I mean, Carlton get a lot of criticism, but they're loved by the media. As soon as they're up, they're like the biggest thing on the planet. Collingwood are loved. Richmond are loved, and I think that's why they got an A when I think their trade window was bad, because they got rid of experience and are going to bring in players who've never played, and then they're going to play with nobodies, and they're going to be like, this is hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
I only wanted to cover that quickly, but I just couldn't believe that was the perception by the media, because I really don't think there's much logic behind it, and I doubt they've done any research into how this makes us better.
When you're looking at the trade period in isolation, it doesn't surprise me, and I don't necessarily disagree with it. But then if you take a step back and look at how the trade period will impact what we already have, that's where I think we've done a good job, if that makes sense.
Yeah. All right then. Well, look, let's get to some questions and then we can
Okay.
finish up this show.
Sounds
all right?
good. Thank you also to everyone who did send in your questions.
Yes.
You can find us on Further North Pod all across socials, all the good stuff.
All the socials. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, because that helps
Yes,
us a lot.
please do.
And you can see our face, which is fun. Even though the light's very bright right now and my
It
eyes are a
is.
bit sore. Anyway, we're going to dart around a little bit here. I've tried to group some questions together from different social media platforms. So we're going to throw to Always Right on Twitter, or is it X now? Whatever. Should we keep pick 2 and complete our midfield and take a key position player at the next pick, or split pick 2? We've got a few questions like this. Oh, God, I can't read this handle. Danaji on Instagram also says, do we split pick 2, targeting particular roles, or hold and pick the best available talent? And the last one on Facebook is Matthew Samin Huji. Oh, that's fancy last name. I can't do that. What offers should we take for pick 2? Taru is I think I said that right, is the one I'd be looking at, and then maybe a best available. So I guess let's lump these together. What do we do, Marnie? Do we split pick 2 or do we take best available?
No, I think we split pick 2. And we
Completely
probably bring the future first into this year's draft as well, if we can.
If we can split pick 2 for, say, Richmond, I think Richmond is probably the most likely to take pick 2 off our hands. 1, so many picks, and 2, they can get the top 2 picks in the draft. If we get pick 6 and anything in the teens, I think that's good for pick 2. Personally.
I reckon we should be aiming for either Richmond's 6 and 10 or 11. But then also, I was on Blue Abroad on Friday night, and Jake from Saints TV, who has been on the show throughout the year, he said that apparently St Kilda were potentially keen on North's pick 2 for pick 7 and 8.
I would probably take...
You take either. I think the
I
draft...
wouldn't go lower than 7. The thing I worry about is if we drop too low and then not getting Harry Armstrong. We need to come out of this draft with Harry Armstrong.
Yeah.
And that's a make or break for me. The only way that it's... Other than that is acceptable, if some way we can't split 2 and then we take the best big-bodied midfielder. Now, I know Smiley is that. I can't remember the guys, O'Sullivan at the top of the draft, who's also like 190 centimetres. I think I might be getting that name wrong.
I think it's Finn O'Sullivan.
Yeah. We need to come out with a big-bodied midfielder. If we come out with another 180 centimetre midfielder from pick 2, then Brady Rawlings needs to get some heat. Not for his trading, but for his drafting. If we don't come out with a key position forward as our number 1 pick, for me, bad draft.
Yeah, okay.
And
That's fair.
I just would worry if we go down to 8, what if he gets taken at 7 or 6? I think the highest...
Well, St Kilda would go, it'd either be 6 and then 10 or 11 from Richmond, or 7 and 8.
I would take 6 to get higher, and then take a punt a few picks after
Yeah.
because Armstrong is the goal. Armstrong is the player we need to get, especially with Darling coming in. That's the heir to the throne of Jack Darling. So I think we need to come out with Armstrong. And I don't want to drop down too far and risk that.
And risk it,
and
yeah,
then
that's
pick
fair.
whatever we need after that. And if it's in the teens, it's fine. If it's 11, 12, whatever.
Yeah.
That pick, which will be sort of like maybe 10 and below, 10 to 20, you pick the best available player there. Doesn't really matter, but Armstrong is the goal.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go back to Facebook for a bit. Joshua Rako. I think with Parker coming in next year, he could mentor Bull and turn him into an elite mid/forward. Do you agree?
Yeah. Yeah. We've spoken about Cam Zerha rotating through the middle.
The element of chaos.
And we think he plays that role so well. He is that big body that, you know, could really and has thrived in the midfield when we've needed him at times this season. I think it, like Sheasel, it also allows Bull to be able to do the same thing. And I think that there's definitely plenty of players, and Bull would be just one of them who will be able to learn a thing
Saw
or two.
Curtis go through the middle a bit as well. I'd probably keep Curtis closer to goal.
So would I.
And I think Bull is more suited. Like
I do agree.
Cam Bull at the moment is Jordan De Goey from Wish, right? And he's still a very good player.
Yeah.
But De Goey's best is elite.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So he's got that attribute. He's got that type of game about him. He's just not quite as good. So
Yeah. And maybe that's the pressures that have come without having a reliable, and it's no
He's had to play
disrespect.
second key forward.
Yeah, it's no disrespect to Bryn Teakle because we loved
I
Bryn
love Bryn
Teakle's
Teakle.
second half of the season, but really, Bull should now be able to just
Free him up a bit.
unleash and get off the chains a
Unleash
little
the
bit.
ball. Running of the Bulls. This is so exciting.
So good.
All reports are he's got a personal trainer to get his fitness up
Great.
as well, which we
Awesome.
heard this last preseason though, and he was meant to be the best player in the league, and then he wasn't. So TBR on that. Sam Rawson. Is Elmac in our top 22?
At the moment, yes. My thoughts may change if he steps down from captaincy.
I can't see that happening.
Right now, yeah, I do see him in there.
Yep.
Especially given the need for the leadership balance and the experience. But if he was in and out of the side this season, I wouldn't be disappointed. And it's no disrespect to him. It just means we're evolving.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I say yes, he is. And we've talked about his heaps. I think he is a bit of a scapegoat. I don't think he's as bad as people think. I will back Elmac until he's that bad. He absolutely needs to be dropped. I'd say the time that he deserved to be dropped was probably 2023 when he had probably his worst year that I can remember. But we didn't have the players in the team to bring over the top of him. Now we do. More pressure. He's a leader. We know he stood up after he sort of did that press conference. I think it was after the Adelaide game, it was the Adelaide
that's
game.
our favourite press conference
There
of all
you go.
time.
So he stepped up after that, and I think he had a decent enough season after that. I know that gets fans cringing, but hey, that's my opinion. I think he is at the moment, but yeah, TBA because we actually have proper players who can challenge him.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
We've talked about this, but I'll shout it out. Brett Chard. Thoughts on the hysteria of sacking Brady Rawlings mid-trade period? I mean, we did cover that.
Yeah.
But, I think it's a little bit crazy, but I think it's more of an emotional fan reaction because we
Knee-jerk
want
reaction.
the club to be better,
Yeah.
not Brady Rawlings
It's
as
their place
an
of
individual.
love.
Yeah. Where am I now? Mark Franklin. Regarding Dan Houston, how does the best offer not win on the day? Why does a top 4 team trade away all their All-Australian to a 2023 Premiers instead of trading him to one of the current bottom sides who offered the better deal? Please make it make sense. So he's asking why didn't he go to North? Because North had the best deal. Because the players have the power. And
Players and player managers also have the player managers
power.
have so much power. It's crazy.
Yep.
They're running the show.
Yeah, and I think Dan Houston's been a good servant. You can look at Luke Parker and the Swans footy boss after said, we wanted to respect Luke Parker and get this deal done for him. Not that Dan Houston's been that player for Port Adelaide, but the players have all the power these days, which I think is a bad thing in the league. Personally, not that they should have no power, but they should go to the better deal. If people don't like compensation picks and assistance packages, then if you want organic equalisation, then the team should be able to trade them to wherever they want to go.
100%.
This happens in every other sport. The footy is just a different type of sport for some reason, and we care
It's
too
because
much
Australia is so small, I think.
yes, but they're a professional athlete at the end of the day. And then I've heard them say like, "Oh, we don't get paid as much as the players overseas. So that's why in the NBA you can send someone anywhere and they don't really complain. We still get paid, $800K plus a year. So stop complaining because I get like 10% of that. So, let's not get too picky about that.
Yeah.
Look, I think in the NBA, we've seen that the player power became an issue, and then the league actually had to sort of reverse a few of those rules with the new collective bargaining agreement to make sure that all these super teams couldn't get formed. I think the AFL is usually about 10 years behind a lot of these mainstream sports. And that's where I can see the AFL going. I think a lot of players are going to be going to Collingwood, Carlton and that sort of stuff for the next few years, and they'll have to readjust all of that to try and make sure the players don't have quite as much power to just nominate a club. Because I think the nominating a club thing is ridiculous. I think, and sorry, I'm ranting here a little bit.
No, you take the floor.
But I think how it should be is a place says, I want to leave. I'd like to go to this area, and they can put it in, but that's not a must. Say Adelaide is trading someone to North Melbourne, or wants to trade someone, the player wants to go to North Melbourne, but North Melbourne doesn't offer the best deal. The club should go, we've got Saints, Dockers, Eagles, Cats. They're the best deals we'll accept. Pick one. And then they go to one of those. So the club gets the deal, who's the employer, and the employee goes wherever they want to go from the ones that the employer has picked.
Yeah, I also think I don't want to open a can of worms here, but I think until we have stronger leadership at the very top, this will probably continue to be an issue.
I agree. I'm actually is Andrew Dillon? Is that the new guy's name? I'm really worried about him. I know this once again. This is not this podcast, but how much he cares about the interstate clubs and seems to want to negate Victoria and just leave it be. He doesn't stand up in moments where the umpiring last season was absolutely atrocious, and it didn't take the dumbest kid in the world to be able to know that. So, it's like, and he comes out and goes, "Oh, the umpiring's the best it's ever been." That just shows naivety to me. He seems like roll him out. He's a yes man. He'll put on a big smile and say how great everything is, but behind the scenes things burn down. So anyway, there's my opinion. But let's move on. At Coach Hess 40, Donnie Hess, the very special guest on the Luke Parker episode.
He was so good.
Do you think finals, and I know what Marnie will say to this, do you think finals is a realistic goal for North next season? I think we have another question like this as well. Instagram, Joseph_Baines27. How many wins is a pass with the team next year? I'm thinking minimum 7. I think that was the 2, but let me just double check. Yes. Let's lump those together. What's your expectation next year? An early expectation, which has a right to change, and is finals on the cards, Marnie?
I think we need to win at least 6 games, so at least double what we've won this season and last season. Obviously, we're winning the flag, so that's, we'll be winning, 14, 15, 16 games. No, realistically, 6. We have to win at least 6 games, I would think.
Yeah, my headspace right now is 6 to 8 games.
Yep.
That can change, I guess, with round 1 or pre-season and stuff. But I think realistically, I would still put us as a bottom 4 team, not because we're not going to improve a lot, but because, Adelaide was bottom 4 with 9 wins, I think.
Yeah, the competition was a lot more even this season.
Yeah, and that could mean some teams drop. The way I try and look at it is who's below us? Who can you guarantee is going to be below us on the ladder? I could say Richmond, West Coast, I could see, not a guarantee, but I could see. And then it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I could see Adelaide. There's a world where Melbourne, but they've still got some very good players on the list. So I don't think they drop that far. St Kilda, they're still young. Will they get better? I don't know. Gold Coast, I don't rate them at all. I can't believe people even think they're going to be near the top 8. So they're the teams I think maybe we'll be scrapping it. Adelaide as well, obviously.
I think we just need to take advantage of the fact that this looks like it's the most even the competition's been for a while. So just, go out and kill it.
Yeah, why not? Win the premiership. Just do it.
Flaggery season's
Just
here.
like the AFLWs. Win the flag.
Yeah.
All right. Tom_bold138 on Instagram. Will we be going after River Stevens in the draft? If so, do we have enough points? Now, father-son, obviously, to Anthony Stevens, is meant to be another small sort of pressure forward. I've heard that he might not even go in the main draft and will be taken in the rookie draft.
Yep.
So, not that I'm an expert on this, but I think that means it doesn't matter about points if it goes to there.
Yeah.
I would say everyone has points. I don't exactly know. I don't think they don't publicise what points and things teams have.
So every pick is equal to a certain amount of points. And then if someone, say an opposition club was to take River Stevens, then we would have the opportunity to match with the points that we've got. We would put ourselves in a position to be able to take him, whether we need picks or points, or whether he falls to the rookie draft, then
Yeah. I don't think there's a way that it doesn't happen.
I agree.
Personally, I think the AFL will just make it happen, basically. I think they love the father-son thing as much as I disagree with a lot of father-son, but, you know, it'll happen. And I don't think people will bid on him when he's that low in the draft anyway. They'll just know he's a father-son. So I think he'll just be left. So I would expect River Stevens to be on our list in some capacity.
I would say so too.
Brighton_Isles. Parker gets number 26 in my opinion. What numbers do our other recruits get? Now, I haven't looked up what numbers are. What will we have? Number 1. Maybe I'll go on the website really quickly.
14, 26.
Was Biggie... Oh, I don't know. Who gets number 1, Marnie? Let's go
I
like this.
think we should retire number 1.
No, we're not retiring number 1. If so, we retire it when Majak left, as far as I'm concerned.
I think maybe Jack Darling.
I feel
got that
like,
number 1 energy.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. Our 5 is available as well. For Curtis Taylor.
Too soon.
Give Daniel 5. Caleb Daniel seems like a 5 to me. I agree with you. Hugh Greenwood had dad energy. We know Jack Darling is the reincarnation of Hugh Greenwood at North Melbourne, so he gets number 1. Konstanty, that's probably going to be a high pick. Or a high number, sorry. Who did we lose up here? Does he get
Hamish
45?
Free.
Hamish Free.
36?
36 is available. Konstanty does seem like a 36.
Yeah, I could see that. Also, don't forget we've got kids who will be picking up in the draft. So,
true.
like a 5 or a 14 might go to one of them.
Biggie had 28.
Or maybe Caleb Daniel then gets 28 again.
Does he wear 28 for the Dogs?
Yeah, he does.
Okay, so lock that in. I think Parker 26, Biggie 28. Give me Darling number 1.
I think Darling number 1 has to be a lock.
And number 5,
maybe the new recruit.
Yeah, Harry Armstrong. That's who will wear number 5 next year.
We're manifesting.
Absolutely. Please bring me Armstrong. Okay, Brock._Childs. Is young key position talent still a problem for you? Looks unlikely in this draft we will take any tall. Well, I would disagree with that. I do think if we split the pick, then talls will be taken.
100%.
I think Armstrong is the guy that we want. So it's not, I think tall forward is a problem, and that's about it. People really underrate our key back stocks, and I'm not saying we have an elite defender. Core was really solid last year. Chom's potential is whatever he wants it to be. Logue, we have to wait and see after the injury. But other than that, both Dawsons can play a role. Yeah. I mean, Will Dawson was a first-round pick as a key defender.
I think Will Dawson's going to be a really, really key part of our next premiership side. He is so raw. Yeah. But I think he's showed quite a lot of promise.
Yeah, Callan Dawson's super solid. And then at the end of the day, we do have Toby Pink down there as well. Unless he's taking Nikolaki's spot next year and it's Darling and Pink running our forward line.
Love that guy.
So, no, I don't think it is as much. I think we need depth in key forward, and then we can upgrade on any key position area in the future, bar Larky and Jerry. I think is how I feel about that. Yeah. And depending on what Comben does, probably don't upgrade on him either because we love Chom and he's a superstar. So not really a massive problem, but I do think we'll take a key in the draft.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay. Another Brighton question here. Brighton Isles, Drury, Lazaro and Harvey, based off our trade recruits, who gets the door, love aside? Now, that's directed at you, Marnie.
Love aside, I would still keep Lazaro for depth, but I don't know if the other two will be on the list next season. I
would be getting rid of Drury. I do apologise, but I've said how I feel about Blake Drury before. A little bit of Jack Marnie vibe for me. Lazaro, yes, I would keep for depth. If we can. I would have kept Curtis Taylor, too many Curtises. Curtis Taylor for depth as well, but obviously I think he's good enough to get another club. So keep Lazaro. Harvey is a hard one. Love aside, I think Harvey goes, personally.
Yeah, me too.
A lot of reports saying he's a little bit unhinged off the field and maybe doesn't love footy very much and doesn't take it too seriously. Can't confirm or deny that, just saying what I have heard. So, look, Drury gone, Lazaro stay, rookie Harvey.
Okay.
That's what I would do.
Yep.
Okay, Damien_Johnson on Instagram with 3 N's and another underscore. Does Daniel coming in force Fisher to be small forward? If not, he's a VFL player for me.
There you go, me and Damien on a similar wavelength.
Different level, yes. I don't agree as a VFL player at all. I don't know. I guess just turning any halfback at North Melbourne is cursed. So I feel like they're always just the scapegoats. I understand where he's coming from though. Fisher definitely needs to improve, and don't get it twisted. I definitely don't think Fisher is the proven thing, and I'm not saying he's a lock, but he's still a very good AFL footballer. And if Darling can lead up the ground a bit more, he can actually hit some targets and kick to some players who aren't rubbish at most things on a football field. So I would potentially try him at small forward, yeah.
I'd be happy to throw him forward and give him a shot. Like I said, that position has not been locked in for a very, very long time. And I know that he did come across to North hoping to play more off half-back, but a need's a need. And if he wants to keep his spot on the side, then he's got to prove himself somewhere. And I'd be more than happy, like I said, to give him a shot up forward. Yeah,
and it's such a massive hole for us too. So sorry, Jacob Konstanty. Zach Fisher's taking your spot, mate. Okay, we've got... Oh, no. Goring Xavier on Instagram. I know we'll be better, but have we become better relative to other teams around us? Interesting question. I guess I sort of talked about that before. Who was above us? West Coast? How are we better than West Coast? I think West Coast improved now, but I don't think they did anything good for like 2-3 years down the line getting rid of their pick. He's a good player, but I don't think he moves the needle heaps for them with where they're meant to be at. I feel like West Coast is trying like half rebuild because they still do have a lot of older guys on that list. Yeah. So I'm a bit confused what they're doing. So I would say we've definitely got the potential to be better than West Coast. And in a few years' time, I think we will be. I know that everyone thinks Chad Warner's just going to go home, but I would hope Chad Warner has a bit more integrity than just to run home to mum. So look, I'd say I'm a North fan. We're better than West Coast. Adelaide, I think we could absolutely be better than Adelaide. Adelaide's the most overrated team, maybe by Colin, that is in the league. Every year it's Adelaide's going to do this. Adelaide's going to get in the finals, and they just don't. Yeah. I think they've got a lot of tough players, a lot of good players, but they just don't do it. Mm-hmm. Then who do you look at? Gold Coast. I don't rate them, but they are talented. St Kilda, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I find this question really hard because I think on paper and in reality are worlds apart. Going into last season, I would have thought that the Bulldogs are probably the best, most threatening team on paper, and they just flatlined. Yeah. And going into this season, we all thought that Hawthorn and North would battle it out for
Spoon.
The Spoon, whereas Hawthorn, played a semi-final and just missed out. So I can't answer this question ever, really, to be honest, because we know that what is on paper and what should happen versus what happens in reality are usually worlds apart. What
I would say is what I can not guarantee, but what I'm confident in is we're more talented than all the sides around us, and we have the potential to be above them within a couple of years. So Richmond is going to stink for like 5 years. I don't think West Coast did anything for their future. Adelaide... Yeah, just nothing. I think within a season, like if we click this season, I do think we can be above those teams.
One thing that does fill me with confidence is the actions that we've shown over the trade period and the comments that we've made to back it up is that we think that we're now in a position where we can start to launch up the ladder. And it's the internal belief that's going to be part of the way we actually get there. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? If we are in this mindset that we're rebuilding, then we won't actually make any moves. But if we're sitting here and that mindset is we're actually ready to go now, then I think we should be ready to go.
We saw that second half of last year when we do have belief what we can do, plus adding 3 premiership players who know that you can get there.
A fit list. We've lost quite a few players, in the last few games of the season as well to injury. So, yeah.
Yeah. Jack Bunny on X, with players incoming, which players do you think will find themselves out of the team that were in the side most last year? We'd assume Darling, Parker and Daniel go straight into the starting lineup. So who goes out? I think we talked about the halfback spot a lot. It puts pressure. I think Fisher and McDonald probably start with Daniel in that side, if some are on the bench or not, however it is. I think they're in the 23. I guess it's Goda, Bergman, and Miller. Miller Bergman's a hard one. And Hardiman there, I'd say Goda is probably the top of those 3 young guys. Then you'd put a Hardiman, then you put a Bergman. I think they're the ones, but none of those, I guess, were people in the side all the time. Who do you think Tucker?
I
think I'll say Tucker.
Just sort of off the top of my head, the players I would think that are under the most pressure: Zach Fisher, Eddie Ford, Darcy Tucker,
Eddie Ford's a good one.
Toby Pink as well.
Yep.
They're probably the ones thinking about the mock sort of best 23.
Tickle as well. As much as I think he's got a massive role to play,
we still need someone to chop out
I
Sherry,
completely
and I
agree.
don't think it's Darling. So it can't be Nick Larkey.
No,
so
not.
I think, and we did see this season we did have this season we had that 3-prong forward. So potentially Darling is replacing Toby Pink.
I think that's spot on. Yeah, personally, I think Toby Pink. Yeah, we love Toby Pink, and Bay 29 loves Toby Pink, but I guess, we have to upgrade on those sort of players. So if he's coming in, I'd say it's for depth. And
it's just removing emotion out of it. It's, again, love aside, as someone said. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on. I mean, Eddie Ford is a really interesting one to talk about because I think we all love Eddie Ford, and he's definitely good enough to be in the 23. But I think it's really, really hard for him. Especially with Dersma as well, and Zerha,
Paul Curtis
being better. Curtis in there as well.
Had a great year.
Really, really tough for those guys.
Parker.
So the other one is, Dylan Stevens was there half the time, but I think him as well.
Yeah.
And Tucker sort of went wing or half back. So I'd say, definitely we talked about for Tucker. So they're sort of the ones I can brainstorm off the top of my head.
Watch his space.
Nick Walters on X. If we have spots available, who do you think we could select as a delisted free agent? I can't see it happening now, but I've always liked Brandon Parfitt. Wouldn't mind finding a spot for Jai Cully either. I haven't had too much of a look at the delisted free agents. No Taberner is there. He's someone that if we can select and he's happy to play twos as backup, I would probably take a crack at.
I reckon his body's cooked.
It potentially is, but I'd rather like a Taberner coming in if a Key Ford goes down. I know Toby Pink is there, and Pink's play more robust, so Pink can play that role. Parfitt is an interesting one. We have so much midfield depth. The only way I'd be getting delisted free agents is if they're happy to play twos and be backups to injuries. That's it. But I haven't looked at the list too much. So I apologise, Nick. I'm thinking about doing an episode on this, so we might round back up to this one later. But is there anyone on the delisted free agents? Oh, no.
I'm going to get cooked for this.
Go. We need the clickbait.
Gary Rowan.
No. See, I was talking to a couple of Geelong people at the barbershop. I really like Gary Rowan as a player, but we're talking about Eddie Ford not getting a spot in the team. You can't play Gary Rowan over Eddie Ford.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Absolutely 100%.
That's interesting.
Gary Rowan is made of glass. His game relies on speed. And with his legs being that bad, he's just not going to have it anymore. He would be one for me that I reckon we would get and would just do absolutely nothing. I really like Gary Rowan as a player. I think he can be electrifying. The Swans, I loved him. And at the Cats, I think he played such a good role for them. But mid-30s, made of glass, relies on speed and agility, not for me.
Okay.
But tell me why, Marnie. Tell me why.
No, I just think he would. I just think for depth, I could see him, playing this like cameo role, maybe like 6-8 games.
So would you play Rowan over Ford
this year? I don't see why not. He's still showed plenty, and he's still delivered at senior level when he did play for Geelong this year. Obviously, he suffered quite a bad injury in the VFL at the end of the season. So how he recovers from that, I'm not sure. But there was a rumor that he did have a couple of conversations with Clarko as the season ended when it kind of looked like he wasn't going to get another contract at Geelong. A few people that I know who go for Geelong rate him really highly. So
Geelong rate everyone highly though because they just win everything. Like
must be nice.
Shout out to Adam at the barbershop. I said, would you give up some VFL listed player to get Clayton Oliver G Club? He goes, nah, everyone's great at Geelong. So that's what Cats fans are like.
That's what I aspire
They're living in a blissful world. They don't
That's
know what
what
it's
I
like to do it
aspire
tough, So we'll be there one day. I can't wait till the Cats are out of the 8 and at the bottom of the ladder. Graham King, what are the ramifications of the trade period for our current captains? This is the one that will divide opinion on people. I don't think there's much ramification. I think Simpkin and McDonald. Do I agree with Simpkin and McDonald both being joint captains again? Probably not. But I don't like the disrespect towards McDonald, which we talked about heaps. I think Simpkin, I would like Larkey as captain personally, but I think Simpkin has done a really good job captaining the club through its worst period in history. So if I'm going to add my own heart plus realism, I think Simpkin's captain. I would go Parker, Larkey, I think, as co-captains, and I want McDonald still in that group. I think
You'd
McDonald...
make Parker captain.
No, vice captain.
Okay,
Sorry,
yeah.
my mistake. Simkin captain, Parker, Larkey vices, and then like McDonald, Darling, Daniel. Who else was in there for us? Sheasel, of course. In there as well. Maybe and Chom. Put Chom in there.
Yeah, I don't think immediately it has any ramifications on them, but if their form starts to falter, I would like us to approach them in the same way we would approach any underperforming player and drop them. I think you have to be, there should be enough leadership in there that we should be able to do that and have integrity around those selections. I think you start both of them at the start of the year, bar injury. But if they don't live up to expectation, then, maybe they do go back to the VFL a little bit. These are the tough calls we have to start making to advance as a side, but in the immediate term, I don't think it's got any ramifications on either of them.
The other way to look at this question is in a positive way. Ramification, I guess, is usually a slightly negative term, but it's like, how can this benefit Simpkin and McDonald?
Well, puts pressure on them, puts pressure on a lot of players
Simpkin
to
could
perform.
become such a great captain under these guys, as well. And I think, once again, we write players off too early on and off the field. So
it probably alleviates pressure off, both of them to now they've probably got support as leaders. They can just sort of play footy.
All I see is positives for that, to be honest, with these guys coming in the club for our leaders. So always right again on X. Who do you think will chair off Darling and Parker and Daniel in their 300 and 200 game milestones?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I haven't thought this deep.
Well, we need to, Marnie. Jack Darling, big unit. I would say Jerry, but who's that? No one else is that tall. I guess
Larky.
maybe. Yeah, Larky, but Larky's a bit skinny. I'd say you got to get 2 ruckmen on it or chuck Chom in there. They're the only ones lifting that big slab of concrete. So I think give me Chom's shoulder's a bit dodgy. Give me Teakle and Sherry.
I think Teakle.
I think it has to be.
Yeah.
Parker, make the rookies do it. I reckon Parker pulls rank and goes, whoever we draft or McKercher, get Colby. And I reckon who else is going to be there?
I could see like Shees and George.
Shees and George.
Luke Parker.
Cheering off Dad. Caleb Daniel. I reckon get one person, get Sherry.
Sherry put him on his shoulders.
Yeah, I was going to say just on his shoulders, just a couple of helmets, or hold him like a baby. I reckon hold him like you're trying to burp a baby or something. I reckon that would be really funny.
Yeah, great. Like on his hip.
Yeah. Or get one of the little baby carriers on your chest and he just walks him off.
Oh, poor Caleb Daniel.
Jerry's got a bit of that. I believe that's Mr. Gilmore's. You know that scene from Happy Gilmore? Yeah, love it. Boomer on X says, without any established small forwards on the list, can we really climb up the ladder? We've talked about this a little bit, I guess, but apart from kicking a couple of goals a game from crumbs, a small forward begins your defence. For years, the ball has ping-ponged out of our attack down the other end. Well, I think that's what Darling and Parker will bring in that forward line.
And Konstanty should be able to secure a spot.
I would hope Curtis can build on his improved pressure.
I think Paul Curtis's defensive game was so underrated this season because he didn't really have a lot of support and because
no one else did.
He was the only one doing it.
Yeah.
So maybe this, again, it's about how the other players who already exist will benefit.
I think as well Zerha stepping up to his old school balls in the area.
Just throw his weight around.
Throw his weight around a little bit. So I think that area can improve. Will that help us get up the ladder? Yeah, I think it will. I think it will a little bit. I still do see us as bottom 4, but we could be like a 15th on the ladder instead of a 17th.
We're winning the flag, guys. Don't listen to what he says.
Yeah, you're totally right. Don't listen to what he says. James, these are some questions for you, Marnie, all right?
Yeah.
All right, these are going to be last 3 rapid fire for you, okay? I don't want you to think too much about it.
Okay.
James and his Brews. Considering the retirement of Hugh, will Marnie pick a new player to push for selection? Darling's the new favourite. I already know that. I can tell. I know Marnie's vibe. But he's going to play all the time.
Yeah.
Who is a player that's on the fringes? We've asked this to you before and you haven't come up with an answer yet.
Well, no one... I mean, it's Aiden Core is probably my favourite player now at the club and he's well and truly in that.
Tucker? Tucker could be one.
Maybe Tucker.
Maybe Tucker.
Yeah.
Marnie's new favourite, though, will be Jack Darling. You can confirm that. You can take that to the bank. Dylan's here. Dylan, our free agency expert. Can you ask Marnie if we're back? Marnie, is North back?
Dylan, we never left. We never left, baby.
Wowee. All right, last one. Gems __. I'm assuming that's 2 underscores. Can Marnie pull some strings to get George or Harry on the pod?
That's a lot of pressure. I'll
a lot of strings.
see what I can do.
Yes is the answer. Basically, she's got them in her phone. Can I borrow George Wardlaw's number?
Yeah, sure. After this.
Thank you so much. That's it, Marnie. We're done.
We're done.
We're done. Talk about Kanga TV.
Yeah,
Give us the rundown.
Kanga TV. There's not much to tell because I launched it 3 months earlier than I was anticipating. But yes, thank you so much to all of those who already have shown me some love. I just want to say I will still be around. Further north, for those who are trying to get rid of me.
Oh, good. That's good to know.
Sorry.
She didn't tell me to right now, guys. Marnie will still be around.
I'll still be around in some capacity, that's for sure. But Kanga TV is something that I've launched. I've launched it this week. It's a YouTube channel, and there's going to be lots of different videos, lots of deep dive analysis, some quick updates, some collaborations with some other people in the YouTube sphere. And it's really just a safe, fun place for North fans to be able to get some extra content. So hopefully you guys can jump on board and join along for the ride. There's so many exciting things planned. A lot of them I haven't planned yet, but they're in my mind and they're coming. So bear with me. And yeah, I really, really appreciate all the support so far and hope you guys enjoy.
There we go. Job done. We're off to the AFLW now. So going out to Windy Hill.
Go girls. Can't wait.
Another step towards the flag.
That elusive premiership.
And yeah, if you haven't listened to the Tess Craven interview, please do because it's really, really good.
She's so good. I also only just learnt what Namcor was on the back of that. So
I didn't know what Namcor was.
Yeah, no, me either. We're not Namcor.
We're not trendy, Marnie.
No, that's okay. We're fine with that.
That's fine. I'm going to go redo my wardrobe after this. And yeah, we'll be back next week to report on what's going on. I'll try and do a free agents, like a delisted free agent episode and talk about the girls as well next week after we smash the Bombers today. So that'll be good.
In the meantime, you can stay up to date with us on socials. We are Further North Pod across Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube and TikTok. You can also follow along Kanga TV. It's Kanga TV Show on YouTube, Instagram and Twitter. Send Josh all the love mail in the world at furthernorthpod@gmail.com.
Absolutely.
And that's it.
That's it. All right.
Thanks,
see
everyone.
you guys. Subscribe on YouTube. That's the other one, please, because it's free. So we like free stuff.
Thank you guys so much. We'll see you soon.
All right. See you guys. Bye.
Bye.